joy, happy day.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Divided America, and all the sinking ships at sea. It's the John Ford Podcast, the Evening Rancor. Any links mentioned on the show are available at johnford.radio. Welcome to the Evening Rancor, the John Ford Podcast.
And here we go with the John Ford Podcast, the Evening Rancor. This would be number 30 if you're the sort of individual that keeps up with those sorts of things.
My ass.
Now, I approach this much differently than I would a regular talk show, where I'm doing a talk show on radio. For one, and I've explained this before, the thing that makes talk radio interesting is you have phone calls, and the phone calls are kind of like the records that make it interesting, so that it gives you variety. The other thing you can do is have guests on, but, I don't know anybody interesting enough that would be a guest on here that would be worthwhile. If you can think of such person, let me know, but I can't think of anybody. So it's just basically me shooting my big mouth off, and I don't go into this. The general rule of thumb is when doing a talk show, when being a talk show host, as opposed to doing this podcast, I would recommend what I'm going to tell you for your podcast, but this is just me shooting my mouth off on here. It's just, a little diversion for me. Is do a lot of research, do a lot of prep before you go on the air. I'm doing none. This is just me shooting my stinking mouth off, like I said. So basically pontificating on things that I might find in the news or just come across in daily life that I might find interesting. Now, one of the things that's making a big buzz today, I noticed it's all over the Twitter sphere, if there is such a thing. There really isn't such a thing as the Twitter sphere. There's no sphere. There's no physical space. It's just ones and zeros and people's stupid little opinions, kind of like this show. But there's an interesting article that came up yesterday on Bloomberg, and that basically what's happening is that the folks on Wall Street, the men that the men that run Wall Street, are basically having this underlying crisis of conscience. I don't even know if they really care if there's any conscience involved in it. But in the Me Too movement that has sort of like other kinds of movements that one can have, in the Me Too movement, men on Wall Street are now basically not inviting women to play.
Yes.
They're not taking women out for lunches. They won't even get into the elevator if it's just them and a woman. They'll wait till somebody else is around.
Yuck.
They're so afraid of becoming a victim of Me Too, becoming a victim of because let's face it, as we've learned, you don't even have to prove that a woman has been sexually harassed or even upset because you might have said something that they didn't like. That doesn't even need to be proved. All that matters is that the accusation is made, that the insinuation is made. And once that insinuation is made, there is no innocent until proven guilty. You are automatically guilty, as we have seen from the folks that basically say, believe her.
That's right.
As opposed to believe the truth. No, we believe her.
Yes.
So the power brokers on Wall Street are basically, they're kind of quietly saying, look, and I'll put the link to this story up if you haven't read this yet. They're basically saying, I'm kind of not going to hire women. I'm kind of not going to invite women, like especially ones under 35, out to lunch or to a dinner. And if I do, there better be other women and other men there that can back me up if they make accusations about me doing something that's bad. A lot of people are calling this the Pence effect after Vice President Mike Pence, who said that he avoids dining alone with any woman other than his wife. Now, when you're dealing with the power brokers on Wall Street, obviously the impact of such a thing can be overwhelming. Let's call this, as Malcolm X used to say, this is the chickens coming home to roost. It is the unintended consequences of Me Too. And the Me Too movement's trying to out all of these misogynists or whoever they are.
The scum of society.
Pedophiles, whatever. Okay? And I'm sure that they exist. They're out there, and they're mean, and they're nasty.
Yes.
They have created this unintended consequence of basically creating a roadblock for women in business. I was thinking about this for myself. I think I'm going to go along with this. I am not going to have lunch or have dinner with any woman or have any meeting with any woman who is not my significant other. Because even though I'm nobody and I ain't got no money they can give from me and nobody gives a damn, the consequences of what could happen from just somebody saying, he was mean to me, he said a word that I didn't like, or, he touched my knee or whatever. It's just not worth the consequences. When I saw this story, and it was basically, I think I saw it originally on from Claire Lehman of Quillette that had quoted this, and I responded to it. And if you want men's clubs, this is how you get men's clubs. Everybody went nuts with that. I think I got retweeted on that thing about 150 times, and it's still growing. So this has definitely hit a nerve. Thank God I never had to deal with this when I was in a management position in broadcast media. I knew other managers that did, and there was one instance in particular of somebody who was accused of sexual harassment against women, and I knew in my heart that it wasn't true, that it was just this woman trying to get at him because she didn't get a promotion. I knew it wasn't true, but it didn't matter. And this is going back 20 years. Just because of the accusation, he ended up having to give up his managerial position, and they kept him, luckily, on staff just as a disc jockey, basically. I always went out of my way to make sure that there could be no accusations against me with this sort of thing. And being in radio, man, there were plenty of opportunities for sexual harassment to take place because there was always women trying to get on the air, and they would, and would tell you they would literally do anything to get the gig. But I would say no. I even had one woman say, look, I tell you what, you give me the job, I'll do that Bill Clinton thing. And I looked at her and I said, no, I don't think so. And she said to me, what are you, one of those like hung up guys that sits at home alone and off as opposed to like getting the real thing? And I looked at her and I said, no, I have a daughter and she's like 12 and I would want somebody to treat her the way I would treat other people. And that's why I'm not going to take you up on your offer. And what Bloomberg is reporting on is the unintended consequences of the social justice warrior mindset gone completely off the rail, and its unintended consequences.
For the sake of our friendship, I am just going to resist my sexual urges, and that's all there is to it. Now, come here.
I'm the happiest guy.
He's the luckiest guy.
'Cause I just bought a new Ford.
From a wonderful dealer.
Wow, what a dealer!
For a Ford or a fine used car.
A sexual giant. No longer satisfied with one female. Now he needs 3 or 4. See how he goes from the back of one right on to the next one? Sex without stop.
Without stop?
Yeah.
Doesn't he hurt?
I have prepared this special ointment. I put a little drop in here. He puts it on. Poof! No pain, just pleasure.
It's the John Ford Podcast, the Evening Rancor.